by coil, or we use the tools to compress the clay with slabs. So I don't practice that kind of religion of that you need to wedge the clay before we actually start hand building with it. On the potter's wheel, I do practice that. I do preach that, I mean. So we're gonna wedge. There's a couple of different ways to wedge. Wedging is basically just kneading the clay. When it comes out of the box, or when it comes out of the barrel, when the ladies make it, sometimes it's soft, sometimes it's hard, and you want it to be even. When you're on the potter's wheel, you want it to be even. You don't want hard chunks, you don't want soft chunks. So you want to make sure that this is all kneaded and wedged together and it's nice and homogeneous. So like I said, we're going to wedge. Tam wedges with a big chunk of clay, and then she'll cut it up into smaller parts. That's the smartest thing to do. But if you can't handle a lot of clay, you can also weigh these out into like specific weights and then wedge out each one of them. You just get more tired. So it's up to you. So what I'm going to show you guys, if you guys want to come over this way, because I'm going to stand here. So there's a specific, not, I guess, let's go this route. There's different ways to wedge. Different names, different techniques. You just want to get the air bubbles out. You don't want air bubbles in the clay. Because if there's air bubbles in the clay, you cannot center the clay very well. Also, when things get fired, if there's air bubbles in the clay, air bubbles expand and the clay wall does not, and it will explode. So you want to try to get air bubbles out. So if I cut this, I can see air bubbles in there, right? See how all that stuff is in there? Okay. So I want to wedge this, I want to knead it, and I want to get all those air bubbles out. So when I wedge, I'm going to cycle the clay through on itself. And sometimes when you knead it or wedge it, you'll hear the air bubbles pop. Because it's cycling through, there'll just be a popping sound. Different theories of how long, how much time you wedge, or how many times you have to wedge. I don't know, some people say 100. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. Some people say 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'd say probably like 2 or 3, you know? Just get it wedged and get all the air bubbles out. So, first one. You all right?
Yes.
Thank you for the donuts, by the way. Madeline brought the donuts.
Madeline.
So, first one is I call it the ram's horn technique because when it's done, it looks like just a bunch of ram's horns. So I'm gonna push this away with 2 hands and roll this forward a little bit toward me, and then just keep pushing it and cycling it through. What I don't want air pockets to form every time. So what I'm doing is pushing it in with this part of my hand so I don't create air pockets. So I'm just spinning it through. And I'm creating all these little layers of clay, cycling it all the way through. So then if I cut it, use the wire cutter. I don't have any air pockets. So then I'll slap these together, make sure I don't have any air pockets. Okay, none at all whatsoever. All right, so that's one. Tam was doing spiral wedging. That's a little bit more complicated.
It's hard.
It's hard to explain. I know, I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna push with my left hand away. I do it opposite you. So it's gonna be a lot different than when I explain it. I'll explain it first, then you explain it. Okay, cool.
Explain
All right.
it. Sure,
So
yes.
I push away with my left hand, and then with my right hand I bring it in. So you can actually see my wrist spiraling this clay. At the same time, I'm trying to keep this corner from creating like a air pocket, so I walk it back on that edge. You can actually see the spiral develop. This takes a lot of practice because it's really confusing. Tam does it the opposite way of me.
Because I didn't have anyone teach me. I was just like watching people do it.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got something like what they do.
Right.
But yeah, I basically just like rotate it as I go. And eventually I kind of just roll it
Mm-hmm.
so that I can get the whole mass going, because otherwise it just doesn't work for me.
Right. So there's two ways of wedging. The other way of wedging, if you have really weak wrists or, you know, like me, you get tired really easily, you can take your clay out of the bin. You're gonna use the wire cutter. Cut this into strips, right? All I'm gonna do is just slap it together. I'm gonna do this a couple times, numerous amount of times.
It's like shuffling cards.
It is. It's totally that. Right? So, then, when I pound this out into a ball, cut it, there's no air bubbles. Okay? So if I'm gonna need to put this ball back together, I'm just gonna slap it together. All right, get all the air bubbles out. So when you're preparing to throw on the wheel, I've heard some folks tell you, make it see if I can get this. There it goes. Make it into a square. The wheel spins. And it's going to be a round ball. Trying to center this is going to be a pain in the ass. Okay? Don't make it into a square. Whoever said that, dumb. So, easiest way to do it is make it into a ball. Right? Try to get as much work done from the very beginning. Easier to center than a square. Okay? The other thing that you could do, because sometimes like what she's gonna end up with is a cone. Cone's okay too. I'm trying to make this into a cone. Cone would be okay. All right. So, and also you want to weigh this out. Maybe for those of you that are starting off throwing, maybe 1.5, 1 pound, 1.5. If you find that it's too easy, maybe 2 pounds. But if it's too hard, you know, like it's too tough for you to manage 1 pound, maybe 1/2 pound. Don't try anything harder than that, because then you're just gonna kill yourself and waste your energy. All right. So that's why we have the scale. So let's just weigh out. I'm gonna do 1.5 pounds. Perfect. There's 1. Good. 3 pounds. Nice.
Sometimes it works out like that.
I know. Should buy a lottery ticket today.
If you win, remember.
I will. I'll remember everybody. We'll go on a class trip. They're like, yeah, we're recording it. Sure. You said it. All right, so we'll go to the potter's wheel. Also, I like to get a board in a bag. Place all my clay in the bag or on the top of the board with the plastic, because if I leave it out, it's going to dry out. And it's going to be harder to work with later. So I want to save as much energy as I can. All right.